in this system, how well they were comparing against others, and who was actually currently winning the battle for the Outlands. And finally, we wanted to make it possible to fight for your guild's success at any time, not only at designated GVG times, which basically made it impossible to just log on to Albion and say, I want to contribute now, but where you had to wait. And while we will keep that aspect of waiting, we wanted to make it possible to also contribute at any point in time. And this is why we're introducing GVG seasons. So let's get into what they actually are. It's a bit of a narrative time. So while the conquerors of Albion, the newly arrived, that is you, were busy fighting over the land and discovering its powers through discovering what the weapons can do and fighting over the land, there was a group of mages that went deeper and studied the magic of the land. And eventually they found a way to siphon its energy, to get to the core, raw energy of what makes Albion magical. And this way that they discovered, they offered up to the guilds. And this is the change that is now coming to Albion with the K update. We're updating the graphics of the resource territories, because these are the ancient sites where energy can be siphoned. And each guild that owns territories will now have a number of mages in each resource territory in their employ that are working to siphon those energies. So once the GVG season starts, you will have these mages and they will be busy siphoning energy in each resource territory. Now, the siphoned energy can be used to create some really powerful things. Primarily, they can be used to empower the battle mounts, build the battle mounts actually, that we showed to you in a previous video. But they can also be used as a means to getting your hands on artifact gear if you have no other way, or if you need additional artifact gear. In particular, the new level 3 artifacts can be gained through the system quite well. To get your hands on this energy, you will need to either control territories and have these mages in your employ, or you go out and raid these territories. So you go out and kill these mages, they will drop some energy, you can take control of that, and you can use it for yourself. So this is a way for guilds that don't have the strength to hold territory themselves to still get their hands on energy. The land itself, though, doesn't take well really to being exploited that way. Occasionally it will rise up against those who would take its power. And this is an event that we call an invasion. An invasion is a major upset where basically all territories, all resource territories, this does not affect farms and does not affect homes of guilds, but it affects all resource territories. They are reset so that guilds lose control of them and a magical entity takes control of them. And until that entity is destroyed, they cannot be reclaimed. Now, what is the season aspect of this? Well, the season aspect of this is that for any energy gained, the guild also gains a season score. And that score is used to determine the guild's position in a leaderboard, and it also determines eventually who will win the season. Winning a season, it will give you a permanent addition to your heraldry. So everyone can see that you have won a season before, and throughout the next season your banner will be displayed in Caerleon. Now, how does the season design achieve what we set out to do? The raids give you an anytime PvP activity that contributes to your guild's success in the season and allows you to gather power to gain access to some really powerful equipment. The invasions, they prevent the Outland gameplay from becoming too stale. They have a massive upset potential because on this day, guilds will need to compete for territories, and there's a lot of potential for betrayal and fights. In addition, both the raids and the territory, the invasions, allow guilds to have more people than just their core GVG team compete. They can, everyone is important during an invasion, because if you want to get your hands on several territories, you will need to split your group, so you will need a lot of players to have enough potential to control the land. And the raids obviously are a way for everyone in the guild to contribute. So if you have some fighting power and have the ability to overpower the mages, you can contribute. You don't need to be the best GVG fighter. The leaderboards, obviously, and the season winner make it very transparent and rewarding to be successful in this. And you can always see how you're doing against other guilds, and this will hopefully make the competition between guilds more thriving. I believe that already ticks all the boxes that we initially set out to do. We're really excited to see how the GVG seasons will change the competition between guilds and what effect the introduction of things like battle mounts, of raids, of the leaderboards will have on Outland Warfare. The first season of Albion Online starts on December 9th, 2017, just after the introduction of the K update. I'm very much looking forward to see what you do with it. And thank you for listening. Until next time, goodbye.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new Albion Online Dev Talk. My name is Michael Schwan. I'm the game designer mainly responsible for PvP, and today I want to talk to you about the changes in this field for the new upcoming content update. And like we already mentioned before, we have been working on the technical side to improve large-scale fights, and we have also been thinking on the design side how we can improve them and how we can make them more exciting, what we can add, what layer we can add to make it more exciting. And some ideas that has been floating around for quite some while, which we finally implemented now, is adding battle mounts. That means players on mounts contribute to the fight. They can activate spells while they're mounted. And on a high level, how we envision this is we have, like, say, two armies clashing, and you have 10 to 20 normal players without mounts and 1 or 2 mounts accompanying them and amplifying their strengths. We don't want to push the game into only mounted players. With this being said, let's get straight into it. The first mount we have is the Command Mammoth. That's a big tank which is with a lot of hit points and super high armor that can buff all the allies. It can provide a big shield aura, shielding allies around it. It can increase their strength, send out a charge command when all your allies have a short attack steroid to dive in. And it's really hard to take down for the enemies because it has so many hit points. And this brings us to the next mount. That's the Flame Basilisk. This is a Swamp Dragon that's kind of like an artillery that can fire AoE flames everywhere, which sets the enemies on fire. And they have a long-lasting dot, which is not overwritten, so you cannot bring 20 of these and burst someone down. But the E-spell of this Flame Basilisk deals percentage-based damage, which is a very good counter against the Mammoth, because it has a high hit point pool, and you can reduce it by a percent. And if you think, oh, well, we can already do that with poison potions, that will be changed in K. Poison potions will still deal true damage, but they have a fixed amount that is adjusted for a player health and is not that strong against the Mammoth. And last but not least, we have the Venom Basilisk. That's the poison-spitting brother of the Flame Basilisk. This one is armored and can dive into the enemy line a bit better and survives more. And he can debuff the enemies. He can spit poison that reduces the armor, or he can weaken them that they have less attack power for a shortened time. And all these mounts are built in a way that you usually don't want to stack them too much because their effects override each other. And so we keep the balance where we have like a certain amount of regular players and some mounts in between. And we are really looking forward to how the fights will look and how what metagame can evolve around that, where you try to counter the mounts of the other guild. And but we have more stuff for you, since we have been focusing more on how we can make the large-scale fights or open-world fights in general more exciting. We are adding new weapons, the Artifact Level 3 weapons, which are usually designed for open-world fights and group fights. They are very hard to obtain. You usually get them through castles, raid bosses, some extent hellgates, and other bosses. So we expect them to be used in group fights mostly. And to give you some examples, there is this Camlan mace. It's a huge mace where you can shoot this skill shot, which is like a shockwave. As the first enemy it hits, it will create like a black hole around this enemy that pulls all the other enemies toward them after a short delay. So a very strong tool for big fights to group your enemies up. Or we have the Flame Tornado, which has a very long cooldown but deals a massive amount of damage. Also very strong in these large fights. And another nice example is maybe the Bow of Baden. It's the new artifact bow. It shoots a lightning arrow. And when it hits an enemy, it creates a storm cloud that rains down thunder. And once an enemy is struck by thunder, he will be electrocuted for a while. So he stays under the effect of the thunder. And while he's under the effect of the thunder, he cannot cast spells. So it's a very strong counter for, say, maybe holy healers. They cannot use their Q, but all the other instant abilities will still work. And that's just a few examples. There's a lot of interesting spells coming. And we are really looking forward to how the meta will change and what you can do with this. Also, really looking forward to some videos of the community. And one thing regarding meta changes, of course, with K, we are also doing a combat balance update where we adjust, for instance, Grudge and other abilities, so don't worry about that. And another important source for these new items will be the GVG seasons, which we will be explaining in the next video in more detail. But in general, it's as a short overview, you get these rewards by taking part, and you get an energy source which you can then convert into either battle mounts, which are very expensive, or into relics, which you can then use to craft artifacts out of them. And that's it for this video. I'm really looking forward to how you will play the new items and some gameplay footage maybe from the community. And thanks for tuning in.
We've come to Prague to record the soundtrack for Albion Online. We've had the great opportunity to work with a great composer, Jonne, on a soundtrack that will actually be recorded by the Prague Symphony Orchestra in the Rudolphinium, in the main concert hall here in Prague. Several members of our team have had experience with Jonne's music in the past, and he's been in games as a whole for quite a while. So we were quite excited to get him on board for Project Albion from the very beginning, but we now feel the time has come to give the game a real proper soundtrack.
My name is Jonne Valtonen and I'm a composer. I started doing electronic music in a computer demo scene in this group called Future Group, and I had an alias Purple Motion, which I did music under quite a few years. I've been writing and orchestrating and arranging music for Sega and Namco, and last I wrote music for Street Fighter V. Now we are finally here doing music for this wonderful game. The quality of the orchestra. It's not always said that if you just hire an orchestra and go record there, you might not really get excellent results. But in Prague you always get that, and like we did this time as well. And the players are excellent, so that is basically the reason. And of course the Rudolfinum, which is a great place. It has a great acoustics, and you can really hear it on the recording as well. The difference between an orchestra, using a real orchestra, and sampler libraries is that sort of everything is possible. You have all the sounds available. You can do a very big legato lines and very like long lines, which you really can't do with sample-based material. The difference also is that samples are always dead. They don't sort of. You really need to work a lot to get the samples sort of expressive things out of the samples, but with an orchestra, all these players and all these melody lines and everything that's sort of happening inside and outside and wherever, it's sort of nothing is ever static, and all the melodies and all the notes and all the sounds always have the experience of a player who's been doing it for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So that is really a big difference. What makes Albion music special? It's I really have taken a lot of time and thought behind the fact that I've tried to avoid all the cliches what are usually in a game music. Also, because it's recorded with an orchestra and with in an excellent hall that has excellent acoustics, it sort of also gives you this three-dimensional space. I mean, you have your monitor there, but the music now it's sort of like it's expanding the picture in a way. Because of the acoustics and because of everything, so I think it makes it sort of brings the world around you, and that is something special. I think that will happen.
So working on the factions was actually extremely exciting because we wanted to bring out the character of each faction through their music. And I think we've achieved that. Basically every faction has a very distinct musical style. You have the kind of playful, sly, dangerous sound of the heretics.
So you have Morgana faction, which is very military. Keepers is try to give out the power. I mean, the brass really played loud. So.
You can hear the size in their music, and you can hear their giantness, their strength.
A lot of power, a lot of percussions, basically a lot of like large instruments. extremely excited about this. We really got everything we went for, and the orchestra played so well, which is not always the case. That I'm just really happy and excited.
Hi everybody, I'm Christoph Hombergs, Community Manager for Albion Online here at Sandbox Interactive. Today we're here to talk about the new artifact items, one of the coolest new features we'll see in the final beta of Albion Online. To have this feature explained to you and thus me, I brought two game designers here, Michael Schwan and Matt Woodward, who mainly designed this system. Guys, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Hi. What are artifact items?
So artifact items are like the most powerful sort of bits of equipment in the world of Albion. A lot of them, particularly the ones from like the Morganas and the Keepers of the Undead, essentially leftovers from the last war, last big war in Albion, like many years ago. And you're kind of, because you're getting these out of these core items you're finding are like, you know, the critical fragment, like it's this particularly powerful sword that you can make, and what you're finding is like the backbone of the blade or something, like an old blade. Like this is something that's been lying around, or it's been in this boss's like loot pile for like hundreds or thousands of years or whatever. And you get that, and then you can take it back to like a skilled craftsman. You can like, what can we make this? And it's like, oh, this is like, this sword blade is amazing. I will make you, or you will make me essentially, because you're the one crafting. You will make the finest sword you can make out of this, and then you kind of, you know, hammer it together with a bunch of materials, and then you get this like really beautiful sword that's like restoring kind of some of the old power of Albion from the olden times. And similarly, we have the fragments that all these mobs drop. All mobs, veteran above mobs drop artifact fragments that you can kind of take to this guy in the city who like has been studying all the sort of the ancient mystical stuff, and can, with his help, you can sort of bring them together, these like bits and pieces, and be like, okay, with this collection of stuff, we can make something that approximates like this like famous axe head, or this magical bowstring that we know they used to use, and then you can use that, you know, creates the artifact item again that you can use then to make the weapon, make the magical bow or whatever. So it's all about kind of, say, digging up this lost power, this, in some cases, locked away power, and repurposing it and using it for yourself for your own ends.
Why are we doing this?
So obviously, you know, we've been running through the current beta, looking at like how the players are reacting, how we're reacting, what we think, what the data says, all this kind of stuff, deciding what we want to do next. And a couple of different things came together to bring us to this feature. One is the fact that we want to have more cool loot when you're killing mobs. Currently there's a lot of like the gems and stuff dropping, but it's not enough. We don't feel it's enough variety to make it really interesting, especially at the boss level. And also, we were looking at there being quite a lot of people who have a lot of money but don't have the Destiny board progress to be able to spend it effectively. The most expensive weapons they haven't unlocked yet. So we have this new set of artifact items that both allow us to drop a lot of cool things from bosses, and also give us a way of letting you basically, if you're rich but not progress as far, buy more expensive, more powerful weapons and armor, so that you can kind of spend that money somewhere that's useful rather than it just piling up on in your character.
Okay, how do you acquire one of these artifact items?
The artifact items have to be built. You need kind of the base artifact, which is what drops from a boss. You get one of those from the appropriate boss, you take it back to a crafting building. If you've got the skill, like the normal skill, like if you want to craft an artifact sword, then if you can craft swords of that tier, you can craft the artifact sword, and there you have it essentially.
Okay, speaking of artifact swords, what do we get to see?
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of new artifact items. Actually, in total, there's 45 new weapons,
Okay.
9 new armor sets, and 9 new offense. There's gonna be a lot of new cool weapons. It's not only reskins, but we have a lot of fancy new stuff like an orb or dual wielding weapons, and it's
Wait,
gonna
wait,
be...
what orb?
So it's an enigmatic orb. It's an arcane staff, basically. It's in the arcane staff family, but it's like an orb you use, and you can shoot like this and use your spells with it. We have also a demon skull, which is like the curse staff you get from hell.
Okay.
And it had also a cool channel ability where you hold it up and you have all the ghosts floating around you and they do AoE damage around you while you channel it.
Okay.
And yeah, it's gonna be really exciting. There's a lot of cool new fancy weapons and armors, and all with new spells.
Okay, what new spells are we talking about? Examples?
So like we had the skull right now.
Yeah.
So it's a non-interruptible channel. You go into it's risk versus reward thing because you have to go as a staff, as a ranged guy to go into the enemies. You can use the root on slot 2 to set it up. Then you start your channel. You do damage to all enemies, a normal amount, but on top of it, you also deal 2% of your max of the enemy's max health per tick on each player you hit. So it's true damage, which is something we didn't have so far. It's a tank buster to some degree. And before you try it, the true damage, the percentage-based damage doesn't work against mobs, so you cannot insta-kill the demon prince by stacking it or something. So
You could try, okay. What?
yeah, I would try.
Probably, at least once, right?
Yeah, you have.
Okay, we get an orb, we get the skull, we get dual swords, I think you said.
Yeah.
What else can we see?
Like dual crossbow, where you have like, we couldn't resist this one, it had to be.
Yeah. It had to be done, right?
It had to be done. Then also like a huge ram you get, you hold it like this and you can slam the enemies. That's
Massive keeper log. It's like,
yeah, that's one
kill
that's
you with
really
a tree.
Okay. And in terms of spells, what sets these artifact items apart?
So one thing is with the spells is it follows a bit of the basic concept we had with level 1, 2, 3 before. So the artifact level 1 is more single, solo based, and level 2 is group oriented, and level 3 is like the big fights. It's a loose theme, it's not always as strict, but so that means a lot of huge AoE spells are on the highest tier levels, anti-zerg things, and like this channel, for instance, or you can. And also, what is also really interesting, despite all the new weapon spells, which you already know some of because they were introduced with Darion, the new E-spells are actually artifact spells. But also what's really cool is you have with all the new armors and helmets and shoes coming in, they also get new spells that offers a huge amount of variety for your own build. We don't have that many new spells that is completely changing the meta. We want the game to stay in the same direction, but we want to add more variations, more details, more different ways of applying things. So
Basically more choice for the player.
more choice. For instance, you can have an energy field, drop it on the ground, and you recover energy over time when you stand in there for your allies. So you have a way to give energy to your allies. That's something we also didn't have, and it's going to be really exciting.
Okay, let's talk about acquisition a little more. You said you go ahead and basically get this artifact base item. I assume it's a boss drop, right?
Yeah, so the main way, the most straightforward way of getting artifacts is you get these items that drop from bosses, that drop from gateway bosses, from hell bosses, from raid bosses. Basically, yeah, like all the bosses at the veteran and elite level can drop something. As Mikhail mentioned, there's 3 levels of artifacts. There's kind of the base level, and the base level, level 1, and level 3, the highest level, themed